So in today's video, I'm sharing with you the 3 biggest mistakes I made while learning about Islam. But before talking about those things, we should first go back to the very beginning. So my conversion process started when I had a job at a hotel and I met a fellow, and he was Muslim, and so at one point we just started talking about religion in general. So anyway, these talks with my colleague made me want to look into religion more, and so I started researching not just Islam but also Christianity and Judaism. Anyway, so I started learning more about the different religions in the world, and this also enabled me to start asking my colleague more questions about his faith. And of course he was brought up as a Muslim, so it wasn't really like he chose for that faith, but still I wanted to ask him, like, why do you do this? Why do you choose this religion? Why do you pray this way? Why do you do this? You know, just general questions. And it was like, the more I learned about it, the more interested I became in Islam specifically. So I started to do some more research on my own, but I soon found out that there's a lot of different opinions on Islam. I thought at the beginning, okay, there's one Islam, I have to look into Islam. But of course there are so many different versions of Islam, and I had no idea which source I could rely on. So in the beginning I just asked all my questions to that colleague because he seemed quite knowledgeable, and for your information, he is Sunni. So besides asking questions to that colleague of mine, I also did a lot of researching on Islam on the internet. And the internet is a dangerous place, man. It really is. There is so much information out there that's just completely unreliable and sometimes completely false. But at the time I had like barely any knowledge of Islam, so I just read anything that even sounded reliable, but I had no idea, so I just read everything that I could possibly find. And that's probably the first biggest mistake I made, is I listened to everyone who had something to say about Islam. I simply did not know how to distinguish truth from falsity. So I took everyone by their word, and at a certain point this became problematic because I found information that was contradicting something I had read before. For example, some people said it was okay to listen to music, and other people said you will go to hell for just listening one song, so I was like, okay, who do I believe now? Who should I listen to? Because at this point I don't know who to listen to. I don't know what Islam teaches about this. I don't know if I'm doing wrong if I do this, or if I'm doing right if I do this. And of course, looking back at that, I should have contacted the mosque or someone from my local mosque to ask those questions too. But I don't know, it felt like such a huge thing to go to the mosque and ask people, or just to email them. I don't know, in some way it was easier to just believe someone who wrote it on the internet than to actually ask a person of knowledge. But knowing what I know now, I would absolutely advise anyone who is also looking for information to please just go to a local mosque. Go to a person of knowledge. Just ask them and don't rely on some people on the internet that you don't even know, because they're probably just bullshitting. And the second mistake I made kind of ties in with this, and it's that because there was so much information out there, I became obsessed with learning more. I wanted to know every little detail, every fatwa that I could find on the questions I had and the things I struggled with. You know, I spent so many hours on that site. Maybe you know it. It's islamqa.com. There is so much knowledge on there, so many questions and so many answers. It's like a world of information, and I would just spend hours on there just reading questions that I hadn't even thought of. I would spend so much time just reading those questions and answers, and I read questions that I didn't even want the answer to, but now that I've read the question, I want an answer to, and so that's how I just kept going. Yeah, I would spend way too much time there. And it's kind of foolish because I hadn't even converted to Islam at that point. I was gaining all this information because to me it felt like, okay, I have to know every single detail, or I have to know as much as possible before I commit to Islam, before I actually say my Shahada. I needed to know everything before taking my Shahada so that I wouldn't regret it, so that I wouldn't find out something that would make me regret it. That's how I felt about it at that time. Anyway, looking back, obviously that's so foolish because Islam, you feel it in your heart. It's not just a matter of knowing everything and standing behind it. It's also just a feeling that comes to you or not. And at a certain point I had to tell myself, okay, you can never know everything there is to know before you make the big step. And that's okay, because you don't need to. You just need to know the basics, and if you're okay with that, cool, just take the Shahada. So the third mistake that I made was taking things too fast. I wanted to get everything right all at once, and I learned the hard way that that's just not possible. You can't all of a sudden pray 5 times a day. You can't all of a sudden wear hijab every day. You can't all of a sudden go to the mosque every week. You can't all of a sudden fast the entire month of Ramadan. You can't all of a sudden turn your whole life around just because you became a Muslim. And as ambitious as I was with trying to do all of that in no time, it's just not realistic. It's not realistic to do all of that at once. And you know, God knows that. He didn't reveal the Quran in 1 month or in 1 year. It took the Sahaba several years before they integrated everything into their lives. Because God knew, if I'm gonna force this upon them all at once, it's not gonna happen. The thing you start with is Tawheed, and from there on, from that you can build on that. So God made sure that Tawheed, aka the foundation, is so strong that you can build anything on it and it will keep standing. And that's also how we as new Muslims should approach Islam. We first have to work on that foundation and make sure that our relationship with God has a stable basis, has a stable foundation. And once you get that right, you can start making more changes in your life that will please Allah, that will please God. But you just have to remember, you can't do it the other way around. You can't start building the roof if you haven't got a foundation. You can't start praying 5 times a day if you haven't mastered Tawheed. And I think that's really important to all new Muslims or anyone who is learning about Islam, to keep that in mind, that you have to take things slow and you have to give it time. The most important thing is that you work on your relationship with God, and that you ask Him for guidance, and that you ask Him to help you with making all the changes. And if you do that, then everything else will follow. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave a comment down below what you thought of it. And if you don't want to miss any of my new videos, please subscribe to my channel. Okay, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye.